Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Jump Inside JumpCast, where I'm joined by Blue Fox.
Hello. Glad to be here.
And I'm also joined by Monthly Gaming.
Yeah, what's up? It's always good to be back.
And we are going to be talking about video games and difficulty in video gaming. And we've brought some games along. Now, for me personally, I'm going to introduce mine first because I've got a certain passion for certain difficulties in certain video games. And those video games are for me as I just find them. My personal ones are going to be Super Mario Brothers, the very first Super Mario Brothers, Hitman, the most recent version of Hitman games, and Kingdom Come Deliverance. And I picked them for three interesting reasons, which I'll talk about as we go through the podcast. We've also got some games from Blue Fox. Blue Fox,
Yes.
Which games have you brought along? I'm just trying to find your comment.
Yes, I brought 5 games to the table, or at least the 5 main ones I'll discuss, but of course I'll bring more along the discussion. But the games I would like to discuss today are Bayonetta, published by Sega, Cuphead, that's an indie game.
I've heard of that one, yeah.
Celeste, which is another indie game, Jedi Fallen Order, developed by Electronic Arts, and a counter-argument game that's not known for its difficulty, it's known for its opposite, to be very easy game, which is Yoshi's Woolly World.
What is Yoshi Woolly World for those of you who don't know?
You'll find out throughout the podcast.
Is it Yoshi from
Yoshi's Woolly World?
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. And then also we've got Kamazoid, who's brought along Elden Ring.
All right. Yep, you know me, man. I'm bringing back Elden Ring, my bread and butter. Of course, I'm still on that hill, waiting for the challenge, since I'm going to be talking about the new and old God of War games. I'm also going to be bringing in Ninja Gaiden and Doom Eternal. And finally, same as Blue Fox, I'm bringing in Cuphead, one of my favorite indie games.
Right, let's get on with the first question. Okay, the first question we are given is, should games be challenging to be enjoyable? I'm starting off with Blue Fox on this one, and I think you said that that you gave it a thumbs down in the pre comments.
Yes, because I do not agree with the statement that a game has to be challenging to be enjoyable. I agree with the statement that a game can be fun because it's challenging, but the opposite is not always the case. And that's why I brought the counterexample. Because there are some games that are not challenging, which are fairly easy, which are not, they don't offer such a high level of difficulty, that are still enjoyable. Like in my example of Yoshi's Woolly World, which is a platformer made by Nintendo, a very chill platformer. You play as Yoshi, the green dinosaur that everybody loves, in a world made of wool, and you roam around the levels and you find collectibles and fight off enemies. But there is no obscenely difficult challenge. You have infinite lives. The collectibles are hard to find, but are not, hidden too much. Like if you search for them, you will find them. It's not too hard. And yes, the game is pretty chill. I had a blast having it. It's not a game that I'm writing home about making videos upon. It's a game that I really enjoyed. I played recently. I played I think it was like 2 weeks ago. And yes, it's a game that demonstrates that a game can be enjoyable even if it's not challenging. Now, a game can also be enjoyable because it's challenging, and we'll discuss that quite soon.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So, what, like, in that category of gaming, would you say The Sims were definitely like a game where people might enjoy the game, but it just might not be challenging?
The Sims, or for instance,
because that's a big one, isn't it?
City Skylines, for instance, games Skylines. Where you have to manage, which are not.
I would say City Skylines is definitely a challenging game. I've played City Skylines. It's challenging to get your city to a certain point.
It's challenging, but only in the sense of you don't die in City Skylines, right? In the sense of it's challenging to learn how to have a good management, but it's not, challenging as in you lost the game because you didn't build the road too quickly or something like that. There are some games that are designed to be a bit more chill, and that's fine.
So try to look at it from this perspective. When we say challenging, it doesn't have to be when you're, let's say, facing a boss, or it doesn't have to be like when you're facing enemies or a boss. Try to think of it like the challenge is within something within the game. Like you guys talked about The Sims. Now, I don't have a big idea on how The Sims works, but I do think like the challenge within that game is taking care of that family. Perhaps that's the challenge within that game. It can get a bit at points difficult trying to take care of that.
There
that
is
family,
no challenging
family.
in
Now, I don't know
building
how that.
There is no challenge in
but
building a swimming pool and putting them all in it and then drowning them.
No, but the challenge is to maintain the care of that family. Now, like I said, I don't have any idea about The Sims, but for every kind of game, I believe like there is a certain challenge. For there, like for example, even exploration games, let's say simple exploration games, the challenge could be about fighting a certain item. An item was hidden in a very hidden location, so it's very challenging to find him. Even in I believe in the same game you said, Blue Fox. Now I don't have an idea about the Yoshi's World, but perhaps there is a certain challenge within it. Something that doesn't have to be difficult, but enjoyable. Like you can find a certain item only if you can do this, or that it's difficult to find this item because. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that challenge can be defined on what the game trying to. Let's say secrets or hidden Easter eggs, that would also be as a challenge if you try to find them. Because I'm trying to see it from a perspective like it doesn't always have to mean like you have to fight enemies or bosses. Challenge can also be on finding certain items, figuring out some puzzles and all, you know. So it doesn't always have to be. The difficulty doesn't always have to be fighting enemies. The difficulty can also be a challenge and finding items or figuring out certain elements for puzzles and stuff. Or even at some games like Detroit Become a Human or Beyond Two Souls. These are games that their simple gameplay mechanics is basically decision making. So they're not challenging at all. But the challenge within those games is making the right choice. If you get what I mean. So
that is a good
point. The game doesn't have to be hard, but it gives you something challenging for you to figure out, you know? Making the right choice is always difficult.
I think that what you're going with is going like there is an objective and you have to get past that objective, and getting past that objective is the challenge.
Yes, there is a difference between challenging and difficult, because a challenge, as Camus said, it depends on what the game asks the player to do. Like the game can ask the players like, hey, look, manage a group of people in a virtual, dollhouse, which, yes, it doesn't, you will not face enemies and you will not lose the game. But yeah, it's challenging in the sense of like, oh, what's the best way I can do to optimize, my revenue so I can build a bigger house? What's the best way I can, change the world in order to, collect all the collectibles? Like I'm thinking of Animal Crossing, for instance. Like, yes, in Animal Crossing,
it does say
you don't lose the Animal Crossing. It's a sandbox in all by definition. And yeah, in the game you can chill, you can fish, you can capture enemies, you can collect. But all these things are challenging when you set to do them. If you want to be like, I want to capture all the fishes, then yeah, that's a challenge that you self-impose. But the game itself doesn't tell you what to do. The game itself is like, hey, you live on an island, do whatever you want, right? It's a sandbox. So in this sense, I think that every game, it's a challenge when the player introduces the challenge they want to accomplish. Some games make it clear because some games give you a hard enemy to defeat. So then yes, the game is challenging because you gotta defeat the boss to go further to the game. Some games are challenging is that like, look, you put yourself an accomplishment that you want to do, and then it's up to you to do it. Like in a game like Minecraft. Right? Minecraft, you can build whatever you want, and it's up to you to decide what you want to build, and if you can manage to do it.
Yeah, I think the whole thing goes along that aspect of going like, yeah, because you always have to also put in to be enjoyable. Should a game be challenging to be enjoyable? If you're not actually putting yourself to the challenge and you're not actually trying to achieve something, like for The Sims, if you want to do something, if you want to get from A to B, that part is a challenge in itself. Again, you have to define the difference between challenge and difficulty, because is it difficult to get across the street? No, it isn't. But is it challenging to get across the street? Not really, but even the smallest challenge is a challenge in itself. Otherwise, if you're not putting a good challenge on yourself, then you're just standing still doing nothing, and that's not, I wouldn't imagine to a lot of people that would be enjoyable, but that's just my own case there. You know, okay, right. I'm going to move on to the next part of this video. The next question inside this video, which is something I'm going to go straight over to Camazoid with, and it's what defines a good difficulty level in gaming. I have my own answer for this, but I'm going to let you take it first.
Ooh, I thought what defines a good in video games. I'll say what defines good difficulty is player accountability. Even in a level, what defines it is player accountability. To make the player accountable for his actions. To solid my point, I'm gonna talk about the old God of War games and the new ones. Something that I absolutely despised of the new God of War games and how it ruined basically all difficulty options, like from easy all the way to very hard, is now we all know that within video games, the biggest thing, I'll say, the most challenging thing when it comes to video game, certain types of video games, is the boss you face. This guy is put on the final area of this location to challenge you, to see if you learn the mechanics, to see basically how good you are at this game. Something that I absolutely hated in the new God of War games is the checkpoint system when it comes to the bosses. Now, first I'll start talking about the old God of War games. I'll go from the example of God of War 3. So in God of War 3, at the end of the underworld, you basically have to fight like a giant boss, Hades. And on the old God of War games, the bosses don't have like a health bar, but there's something that's going to happen in order to transition to like the next phase. So this boss fight, Hades, like has two phases. Now the first phase, think of it as like he has like 3 health bars, so you have to fight him a little bit, and then a platform happens. You go into the next to the second phase, another fight him a little bit, a platform happens. So basically fight him in 3 phases, and then he transitions to the second like big phase of the boss fight. Now, on the original God of War games, let's say you're fighting this boss, and you're almost to the final platform to transition to the second phase, where basically major platform happens and everything changes, but you accidentally die. When you die, you restart from the very beginning of the boss fight, basically from let's say from scratch, all the way back. So you have to redo all those 3 phases, retake the boss's health bar very down in order to reach to the second phase. So you're basically, the game is making you accountable for some mistakes you made, and you died. Now, back to the new God of War games. And the new God of War games, when you reach a boss and you face him, if you if you like manage to take away let's say 20% of the boss HP, and then you die, you immediately restart back after you took away the boss's 20% HP with full health, and your abilities are all fully recharged. And I absolutely hate that, because nowadays I see a lot of people taking advantage of that mechanic. They see like, oh, I managed to reach the boss to half health, but my health is totally, I'm very close to dying. I don't have any magic left, and my weapon abilities are all gone. Perhaps I'll probably die, and then just restart from half health of the boss with full health, and my abilities recharge, so I can absolutely destroy him. And I absolutely hate that, because the game doesn't make you accountable for your mistakes. Now, in the old God of War games, if you die, you restart from the very beginning of the boss, from how you actually reach him. So let's say I reach this boss with half health and half magic, and if I die, I restart from the beginning of the boss with half health and half magic. So I have to think of how I'm going to use these magic elements. When am I going to use my super transformation in order to turn the tables? So basically, it's making you be accountable for your action, and you have to think of how to use your abilities. But in the new God of War games, I took away half of the boss's health, but I'm out of everything. I'll just die and then restart full health and with all my abilities charged, and I could absolutely destroy him. Now, if this system was implemented in the new God of War games, and let's say easy and normal difficulty, I would have no problem with that. But it's also implemented on the hard difficulty and the very hard difficulty. Why is it implemented on the very hard difficulty? If I reach the boss and I reach him at half health, but I accidentally make a mistake and die in the very hard difficulty, and then I restart with at the let's say at 50% of boss health, and I restart with full health and 4 ability. That just makes it so easy. So for me, the classic God of War games, even at easy, are more challenging, and they make you accountable for your actions more than the new God of War games, where it feels like there's no challenge at all. The only challenge I see is that if you enjoy the story or not. Other than that, sure, sure, when it comes to like some enemy areas, if you die, you restart the whole encounter. But the main bread and butter when it comes to the God of War games, or the main bread and butter to games like that, are the bosses. If the bosses are not challenging, then where's the challenge? The challenge is in the enemy encounters. I already faced these enemies like 100 times, but the bosses, you only face them once. So that's my point when it comes to good difficulty in video games. It has to make the player accountable to his actions. The way he needs to think and try to figure out how to use whatever he got effectively in order to defeat the boss without him, of course, losing.
Okay. I like the idea of consequence. And you know what? I'm going to bring something similar along, maybe a little bit different to what you mentioned. But for me, as I said, I'd bring something along. For me, it's about... I'd say it's still about consequence. I think, if anything, if the consequences are good, I think that's a great thing. Because I think if you select a harder difficulty level, and I think if the enemy are a little bit stronger, I don't agree with this. Because I feel like, you know, just a harder enemy is possibly doesn't... I don't really think that makes so much of a difference. Or like, giving the enemy extra health doesn't really make a difference if their fighting style's the same. It just means I got to do the same hit a couple of times a little bit more or something. I was like, that's just boring, because I'm just doing a longer fight battle. But if there is certain elements of consequence, then, you know, then that's interesting. Like, for example, like I think you mentioned something along the lines of it, but I'm not quite sure exactly how you put it down. But like, you know, if you respawn and you have all your items, that's easy to, you know, have another go at that boss battle. But if you respawn and you don't have all the items, then that's gonna cause some issues. So that first time battling that enemy, it shouldn't give him more health, but he should be at a certain difficulty level that you actually have to think about it. Because if you die and you're on harder difficulty and it goes like you die, you lose all your items, there's like, hey, I should probably think about whether I should battle this guy or not, and I should probably think how I'm going to take him down before I go into that battle. But at the same time, I like certain games that have this mindset of going like, you know, we still remember difficulty in gaming. Like, for example, I pick Super Mario Brothers because, like, there is consequence in that. If you fail all 3 of your lives, you have to start that game from the beginning all over again. So you best be careful about watching your lives on that game. Or, for example, games like Hitman. If you play on the hardest difficulty of Hitman, you get 1 save. You get 1 save slot. You can save it 1 time. If you screw up, you have to restart from the beginning. There is no going back like 20 saves or something, or go back like your 30-second save. You don't have unlimited saves. You've got 1 save. If you save like after you take down 1 target, that's great. Then you've just got to make sure that you take down the next target. But if you screw up taking down one of your targets, you have to start off from either the beginning of the game or right from where your save was. And I just think there's consequence in that, and I think consequence is a big thing in this thing. So I will agree with you on that. Blue Fox?
I like sorry, before
no go, you go, yeah,
I
go
like the point I like the point you mentioned about you hate the fact that when you let's say amp up the difficulty in some games, you like choose a higher difficulty, you're still fighting the same enemy with just more health bar and all. This is something that the video game Ninja Gaiden did very well.
Okay.
I remember like first time playing Ninja Gaiden 1, I played it like in normal difficulty, and after I beat it, I decided to like try it again on hard, and on hard it was completely different because there are newer enemies, and when you choose the difficulty hard, that you don't actually fight in the normal difficulties, and enemies that you fight in the later game are you fight them on literally the first levels. So I love that idea of basically the game locking things from you that are only available on higher difficulties. That's basically a unique challenge that can only be accessible on higher difficulties. There's even even bosses that you can only fight them in Ninja Gaiden only on hard or very hard, which is also something that I've absolutely loved, because these bosses are only accessible when you choose the harder difficulties to experience something new and experience the same level but completely different. More challenging in a different way. You're not facing the same enemy. You're facing newer enemies, more aggressive and more challenging.
Blue Fox?
It was a very big monologue from Kevin Zoid to every point, but I do agree with that I'm currently playing. I'm playing this week, and I still need to finish is Bayonetta, which is one of the games I've brought to this podcast. And yes, that's an old style beat 'em up game, kind of Devil May Cry / the older God of Wars. And in that game, you have levels that are linear, and if you find yourself in a pickle where you have no items of hard enemies, when you die, you do regain the health, but the items you don't. So it's you have to face those enemies, which makes the challenge quite hard. So in this regard, I don't want to say punish, because punish implies that playing a video game has to be something like of a job, right? It's I think that if you play a game on a harder difficulty, you do have to prove yourself the level. That's the thing, right? Because if you play on an easier difficulty, which I think games should have, I don't think game whatsoever, unless the game itself is designed in a way that it cannot have an artificial difficulty, then yes, why not? It's if you want to choose the easy way because you just want to enjoy the plot, then you are not that good at games, because there are some people who are simply not that good at games, sure, go for it. But if you go for a difficulty level and you want to feel rewarded specifically for the difficulty level, then the game has to be difficult. There is no way around it. It's go back to the question, what defines a good difficulty level in gaming? The answer is that the good difficulty in gaming needs to be challenging, in the sense that the player has to put effort that is correspondent to the challenge that he or she faces. So if this effort is below it, then you die, and there is no easy way out. If this effort is above it, then you succeed.
All right,
it's true.
Let's move on to the next question, shall we?
Sure.
Moving on to the next question for Blue Fox. This one, okay? How do game balance challenge with fun?
Well, this is a bit of a tricky question, because it depends on the game you're playing. There are some games like Cuphead that definitely will not balance their challenge to make you happy. The game is hard, the bosses are hard, and you gotta get good to fight them and to defeat them. It's no way around it. Same goes with Celeste. Celeste is a platformer game, so you cannot level up, you cannot gain new abilities by grinding the levels. No, the levels are linear, it's a platformer, and it's a very hard platformer. You die 200, 300 times on a level, just like that. The game makes it quick when you have to respawn, which is convenient, because for instance, I've been playing also New Super Luigi U, which is one of the hardest New Super Mario Brothers, and that game, when you die, you have to see all the animation, all the loading screen, and then you go off the level, and then you have to re-enter the level. I mean, that's not a difficulty that I like, that's just annoying, right? You want to make the game accessible, in the sense of look, if I die 100 times, at least let me retry again, right? Don't make me waste my time, because otherwise it's just annoying. But this is also the question. The question itself, how do they balance it? I think they balance it by asking what difficulty level you want to play, if it's possible, and yes, it is up to the player to decide if the difficulty is right. The game itself, I don't think, can do much apart from tweaking some mechanics, as Camille just said, maybe removing some enemies or adding them if you increase the difficulty. Maybe if you're playing like an RPG where enemies have levels, you can increase the levels. I don't like that solution because then it's a bit, the game doesn't change from a gameplay point of view. From a game design point of view, it only changes from a gameplay point of view, which it's a bit of an easy way out. I like it when they put the effort to like, oh, this enemy now can do this new attack, and this new attack is harder to dodge. You know, that's something new for the newer difficulty. And yes, and it's up to the player to decide, okay, this is the right amount of difficulty I want to enjoy the game without, not enjoying it anymore. Because again, there are people who do not enjoy hard games, and if they don't want to play them, they should not feel ashamed not to.
I do have to agree with your point here, but I also see it from another perspective.
Okay.
Because you can also balance challenge with fun through something I call having like, let's say, when the games offer you like various mechanical options, like various gameplay mechanics. Something that I absolutely adore when playing Doom Eternal is giving you a variety of options and gameplay mechanics in order to deal with the enemies. So in Doom Eternal, there's absolutely like a horde of different enemy types, and each enemy has like a specific weak point, and that weak point can only be taken out by a certain weapon or a certain weapon mod. So the player has to master those kind of mechanics in order to take out those enemies quickly or remove their weak points. That way they are no longer aggressive or anything. And once you master those mechanics and figure out how to, let's say, smoothly switch between weapons and smoothly switch between, let's say, taking care of these enemies quickly, so you don't, it doesn't give you like a challenging time, I think it will be a lot of fun. The reason why I say that, in Doom Eternal, I remember I played like Doom Eternal, and at first time I played like a normal, mainly because I found it very challenging. The enemies are very aggressive and very hard to deal with, but I decided to like, perhaps maybe I should just take some time to try to understand the mechanics. This certain weapon is very good against this enemy. It takes care of his weak point very quickly, makes him useless, and that way I can defeat him faster. Oh, this weapon and this mod is very strong against this certain type of enemy. I can use this weapon when I'm surrounded in order to like safely escape. So basically the game is giving you a lot of options to use them against these enemies, and if you can balance like switching between these options and prioritizing which enemy to take out first when you're moving within the game, it is so much fun. So I believe like you can also balance challenge and fun by giving you a lot of mechanics that can help you deal with certain enemies and remove them basically from the arena.
I'm going to move on to the next question, which is, how important is it for games to teach players their mechanics? Blue Fox, over to you.
Well, I think it's important to a extent, because a game does need to teach the mechanics, because otherwise how do I play the game? Like it doesn't need to be frustrating to the point where you don't even know how the game controls, and it's like, oh, by the way, you could have done this secret move all along, but we just never told you. Like, the game does need to tell you how the rules work, right? Like when you play any game, even if it's a card game or a tabletop game, you need to know the rules, and then you get good at it, right? But you do have to start from somewhere. However, I don't like it when a game stops every 2 seconds to remind you, it's like, oh, by the way, you can do the homing attack this way. Oh, by the way, you can dash in this moment. Like it needs to teach you, but also let you try. It's,
there's a thing called a tutorial, and just please leave it in the tutorial.
Yeah, like, okay, like the game doesn't need to have a tutorial per se. The game can teach you small things along the game. That's fine, but don't repeat them. Right? That's the thing. Like, you play the first level, it's like, okay, you move and shoot. First thing I would teach you. You move and shoot. It's like, oh, then you can jump. Okay, then I can jump, right? Like, you do this in the first mission, and then you're off, right, to the progression of the game. Then yes, maybe if the game introduces a new mechanic, it's like, oh, now you unlock the double jump. It's like, okay, here, you can double jump this gap. Okay, you've done it. Okay, cool, move on. But it cannot be obnoxious, because then otherwise it becomes a bit of a headache every time that you are reminded how to play a game that you've been playing for like hours and hours and hours. So,
I've been playing for 5
to go
hours.
back to
I
the
don't need
question,
to know
so,
this
like
command.
how important is it for a game to teach the player their mechanics? It's important, but don't overdo it.
I like, you know how games respected you back in the day. It was like, right, look up, look down. Right, that's how you look up and down. We'll make sure the settings are set to that, man. Brilliant. We'll put a shield on you. That's fine. Right, jump over obstacles, crawl under. Right, you know the jump and crawl command. That's brilliant. We'll move on. You can learn the rest yourself as you play along the game. That's what I like gaming, when it's like, you know, great. Right, you need here are the basic commands: crouch, jump, forwards, backwards, left, right. Does the right thumbstick, when you move it up, does that make your head go up or down? Are you inverted or not inverted?
I usually like it when the tutorial is a bit hidden. Like, I do like it when the tutorial of the game is not explicitly saying, okay guys, we're starting off, hold your horses, we gotta teach you the mechanic. I like it when it feels natural. Like,
you mean when it's actually inside the game itself, like it's part of what someone's saying to you?
Yeah, for instance, for Portal, right? Like in a game like Portal, like you don't have, a tutorial chamber. It's like, okay, here's how everything of the game works, and then you go off. Like, oh, you learn by, doing something simple enough. You do it, and it's like, okay, great, you've done this simple thing. Now you can do this a little bit more complex thing. You do it, it's like, okay, great, now you have something a bit more complex, and now you have to think about it.
Like in Call of Duty 4, where they go like, right, here's an assault course. Because, you're in training, you do the assault course. It's part of the game, and then they meet you at the end, like, right, now we do the first mission. We gotta go to this boat thing. It's like, okay, cool, right.
But both work. Like, it's sometimes you do need a tutorial area, and that's it. Like, it's no way around it. Like, for a game like Cuphead, like, yeah, you do need it, because when you enter a level, you instantly die, basically. So yeah, you do need a tutorial where it's like, okay, these are just the commands. Like, this is how to parry. This is how you parry. This is all the things you can parry. Okay, great. Now you can go to play the game. Like, I get it, but I do appreciate it. Let's put it that way. I do appreciate it when a game does try to do something a little bit different with the tutorial. When the tutorial makes you think of what you could do in the game, you do it, and the game tells you, you see, it worked. Right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to move on to some more later questions, because I feel like we've been in this podcast and we're getting closer to the end time. Which I feel like we've spent our time on that first question a longer time than we should have done.
I'm sorry. I think it's probably my fault for taking so long talking about that.
Don't worry about it. It's absolutely fine. Right. Okay. I've got to pick the next question. Right. I'm going over to Camazoid for this one. Camazoid, should games adapt difficulty dynamically to players' performance? This is an interesting one.
Yes, it's very interesting. I agree. I say yes, because to test the player further on, to see if he is basically learning the game itself, and if he is adapting to everything that the game is offering him. So they provide him with this certain challenge to see if he can overcome it. One thing that the old God of War games did well is that the stronger you get, the more challenging enemies become. Basically, they provide for you newer and more challenging enemies. Even like older enemies you have already faced, they basically have like a more different design, more aggressive attacks, they become more stronger. And in games like Doom Eternals, enemies become much more stronger, then become more aggressive, and basically the combination of enemies changes. So you have to adapt to it to see if you are worthy to overcome this kind of challenge. So basically, the stronger you get, the more difficult the challenge becomes to test how good you are at this game.
I see where you're coming from. I think Skyrim does that very well, because in Skyrim, the more you level up, the more the enemy levels up, so it's kind of equal out balance. So every time you're in a battle, you equal the person you're battling is equal to your player. And I get
sorry to cut you off. You think of it like a skill check. Yes, that's the best way to it. A skill check to check how skilled you have become. And are you skilled enough to defeat this challenge who was at the later half of the game, something like that. So basically kind of like a skill check.
But then there's the other side of the coin, where it's like different level-based areas, which are like got different certain enemy levels. And it's like, okay, you probably shouldn't go here yet in the game as part of the story, we're not going to block it off from you. You're more than welcome to go there at that point in the game story. But that's got level 50 enemies, and you're only at level 5, so you might want to level up a bit first before you enter that area.
But you can also see it to a point of like, maybe I'm not ready for this area yet, because I do kind of like agree with what Seb said about the area being too strong. Basically, the funny thing about Elden Ring, the next to the start off area, which is like, let's say Limgrave, next area, the area next to it on the left or right, I don't know sense of directions, is basically Caelid, which is like the second hardest area in the whole game, and you could accidentally go to this area, get absolutely wrecked. So I see it as like kind of sense of the player noticing that, yeah, I'm certainly not ready for this. I should probably come back to it later. So it's not like, well, dependent on the person who plays the game, who forces himself to go through that area. For me, like, first time going to Caelid, which is like a difficult area in Elden Ring, I got absolutely destroyed. Immediately looked at my brother and said, yeah, we're not going through here. It's time to go back. So basically, it's like, in a sense of, you go to a difficult area, you notice that you are not ready for this, so you go back and do other objectives, check other areas, and once you feel ready to go do it, then you go back and you see that you are capable of this challenge.
Yeah, well, that's fair. That's fair. But my point being is saying, look, I like that, but I don't like when it's like a level, like artificial level above an enemy that you face off regularly, but just more leveled. So, like, for instance, in a game like Assassin's Creed Origins,
I see what you're saying.
that, there's the Assassin's Creed games were action games, so you could kill anybody stealthily however you wanted. Then suddenly you're moved, in a world where, like, oh, if I move to that block in the desert, the same enemy that has the same bow and arrow, the same small sword. Oh, currently it's level 30, so I cannot damage that person, and he one-shots me no matter what. So that I don't like, when the level is artificial. The level is like, you even if you try, you cannot go there. It doesn't feel natural. A game that, yes, makes a good game design is like Zelda Breath of the Wild, where you have no levels, you don't level up in the game, but you do get stronger by finding new weapons, by learning how the game works, going to shrines, and then yes, you find some bosses around the world which are very hard to fight if you're just started, but in theory you could go there and fight them. Like, it's up to the player to learn again where to go and where not to go. And it's not that I see a level above the enemies like, oh, this is just the same, Goomba type enemy, but it's just level 60, and I'm powerless because, for no apparent reason. That I don't like. If it's a JRPG where levels are a key component, I get it. Like, in a game like Pokemon, like, levels are the thing that defines the game, so I understand. But games that force you not to go somewhere because why not? Then that type of games I do not enjoy.
I think a good game for that
exactly
kind of like description is World of Warcraft. And if you've ever played World of Warcraft, then you'll know how the levels work in that game. And it's like, okay, if you're Blue Fox is like if Blue Fox has entered World of Warcraft and he's like a level 5 in like a level 5 area and he's taking out all the enemy, that's cool. And it's kind of like, all right, you gotta suss out this area and conquer this area. And by the time you've conquered the area, you'll be like a level 10. Then you can move on to the level 10 area and all that kind of stuff, and you unlock all that kind of stuff. I kind of like that, but like but because that area is constantly like a level 5, if you go there when you're like a level 100, yeah, those enemies stand no chance. You can take them out with like a snap of your fingers, and you can be like, there's an element of like where if you play and everyone's leveling up alongside you, the game's gonna constantly feel challenging, and it's gonna feel like I'm progressing more, but also so are the enemies. So there's that element of like, okay, this game's always a challenge. Whereas in a certain game, for something like World of Warcraft, you're going to be in certain areas where certain areas are going to feel like a challenge, but in other areas you're going to start to feel like a god in those areas. You're going to feel like I'm proper trained up, and this area kind of proves it for me, and all that kind of stuff. And I think there's an element in that games need to like not every game needs to do this, but there are games that I feel like it just works great when you can walk into an area and you're level 50, surrounded by a level bunch of ones. Like there was a point in Dragon Age where you're like the highest, like level 24, and you have to defend a village, and in the village there's like a lot of enemies. You're like, oh, that's a lot of enemies, but then you start realizing how much you've leveled up because they're all level like 3s and 4s, and you're level 24. So every time you slash them with a sword, they just immediately die. They don't even stand a chance against you. And I'm like, this is awesome. Yeah, I'm a god now. I've worked hard, and this is how it feels to be like fully ownership. And it's just an awesome
the two games that I brought for the podcast, Cuphead and Celeste, are games that do not have levels. Like in Cuphead, there is nothing in theory stopping you to fight the final boss. I mean, there are levels that you have to go through to unlock the new areas, but from a practical point of view, the way that your character starts the game and the way you end it is the same character. You're playing the exact same mechanics. It's a run and gun. You don't get stronger. You don't get more health. You don't get more power-ups. Yeah, there are some different type of bullets that you can use, but they are not stronger. They're just different. Like some of them are like, oh, this is short range, but it does more damage, or this one is long range, but it does less. But yeah, they don't make you stronger. Like it's you can use the same setup from when you begin till the end, and you'll practically be the same. So in that sense, the game doesn't have a challenge that progresses through the game, in a sense of like, you level up and then you become stronger. But the bosses that you face are more difficult. Like the first bosses you fight are already quite challenging for somebody that has not played Cuphead, but they are doable. But then you move forward with the adventure, and it's like, oh shoot, these bosses that I'm finding in the second and third world, oh boy, they are quite something. So yeah, it's for that reason I would say it depends. It depends on the game design choices made by the developers.
All right.
When it comes to Cuphead, it's about adaptability, basically adapting to the boss's patterns. So it's kind of like a different way of challenge. You don't have a lot of resources to deal with him, but you're going to adapt to his moveset, because you gotta also think that the Cuphead bosses are not very long. You could easily beat them fast, depending on, of course, the kind of tactic you're using, because some weapons that are available in Cuphead can do more damage than others. And of course, you have to also adapt to the various phases of the bosses. The reason I say this, because I remember first time playing Cuphead, I got absolutely wrecked. The more I played, the more I adapted to these bosses, the more easier they became. And playing it for the second time on expert mode, I didn't have a challenging time at all. The only challenge that I found was basically on the boss before the final one, which is like King Dice. And the only reason he was a challenging one because he had like a first phase, which is you have to fight a gauntlet of bosses, also, which was the only challenging part for him. He's like the only boss fight which is very long and very difficult at first, because you can also fight dependent on each time you play, you can fight different challenges which can complicate things. But when it comes to Cuphead, I think it's all about adaptability and adapting to the boss's patterns. That's, to me, what makes the experience fun.
All right. Okay. Right. I think we'll move on to the final part of this podcast. And you know what? Considering I think I want to hear from Camazoid because I'm most intrigued from you. Select your favorite game based on difficulty, and also say why it is your favorite game based on difficulty. And I feel like I know which one you're gonna say, but I
don't want to go to the obvious choice. That's
why I'm intrigued.
But
would you like
that's
to
what
give me
makes
more,
this question difficult, bro.
Would you like to give me more time? Would you like me to go to Blue Fox first?
Yeah. Leave me.
Okay. I'll leave you till last.
While we let Camazoid cook a bit, for me it would be Celeste, and for a very simple reason. Yes, because the game is challenging, go figure, but because the challenge of the game is inherent to the narrative of the game. So for the people who have not played Celeste, of course I'm gonna spoil the end, but I'm gonna tell the premise of the game. The premise is that there's this girl that has some personal issues that are not explained from the beginning, but then you find out throughout the game, but has some personal issues that she knows that one way to solve them is to climb the Mount Celeste. Everybody says that if you climb this mountain, your issues are gonna be alleviated, but it is a hard journey. So she knows it, and she still does it. And it is beautiful because in the game you die a lot. It's crazy. You die sometimes in just between one checkpoint and the other one, which may be like, if you do it correctly, it may be only like 30 seconds of gameplay, you may die like 30 times because it's that hard. But once you do it, once you surpass it, you beat the first level, the second one, the third one, you see your character going up the mountain, and yes, you can imagine that the metaphor of like climbing the mountain and facing off your difficulty, and no matter what, you still push and you still push and you still push and you still try your best to overcome your own personal issues. Then it's beautiful that the game is difficult because it goes with the narrative nicely. And that's why I love the difficulty in Celeste, because another game can be just in range. You're playing like a Super Mario, it's like, hey, why is this game harder than like the ones I've played before? Like, it feels out of place. But here, no, it feels right on place. It fits so well. It's a game that I suggest to everybody. It's a game I didn't review, I don't remember. I talked about short games in a video, and I used Celeste as an example, but I don't think I reviewed it. But it's a game that definitely needs a lot of attention. It's an indie game, so probably like 5 to 10 euros on Steam, and you should all give it a chance.
Also, check this week because it's Black Friday as well. No way, it isn't when the video goes up. If you're watching the stream, it's Black Friday, so don't forget to check in case it's on offer. Same thing. Yeah, for me, I'm gonna say my game next. Give Camazoi just a bit more time. And yeah, Kingdom Come Deliverance, because in that game, I think it just has the elements of things that you've mentioned before, Blue Fox, as well, like things like the enemies don't the whole game really doesn't change in difficulty levels. It's just like practice makes perfect inside that thing. And that game is just like, there's not really a tutorial on combat. It's more of the tutorial is in depth inside the game itself. So it's injected into the game, so you learn it. But that's because that's what you're required to do. You're required to learn. Like, if you want to learn more combat, you do the combat training center. That that kind of feels like it's part of the game. Like that you don't really see it as a tutorial. You see it as just like as, oh yeah, that's part of the game. It's like injected into it, so you don't really notice it there. It's not like it's telling you how to do something. It's just like it's disguised itself very nicely. But and again, the enemies around the world, it's not like they level up difficulty. They are at a set difficulty, and if you train yourself and you do more, and you practice and you do the training, then when you meet them in battle, they become a lot more easier to defeat. But again, it's also, at a realistic point, if you how do I put it? If you battle them and you haven't done the training, it's not like they're stronger or they're weaker. They're just more knowledgeable in the fight. And if you don't have that knowledge, then because you didn't do the training, it's going to be harder for you. But at the same time, there's nothing stopping you. You can go to those people. If you use combat that you've learned, you could probably take them on. But it does help to practice more. And I think that's what I like about that game. Right. I think that's enough time.
Time for the main event, I guess.
Now for the main event. The person.
All right. Surprisingly, I won't be saying Elden Ring, so it's a safe bet. But it's not different in terms of game genre. It's basically a game that's developed by the same guys who created Elden Ring. But there's a reason why I chose this. Yes, sir.
Is it actually?
I believe Dark Souls 1. Mainly because it is the very first challenging game that I've ever played that basically challenged me at everything, and the very first that felt completely different to the other kind of games that I've played. Like, for me, back in the day, I played video games where if I die, I immediately restart from the boss and everything. But in Dark Souls, if you die while fighting the boss, you restart from the last save point, the last place you found a bonfire, basically like a save point, save checkpoint. And that felt kind of new to me, so I have to run back to the boss. And some of the run backs on Dark Souls 1 and specifically Dark Souls 2 are atrocious. It really got me frustrated and angry trying to reach the boss at full health and with all my items. It was also very kind of new to me because within fighting some of these bosses, you have to learn when is the best time to heal, when is the best time to attack without getting myself hit, when is the best time to roll and dodge this attack. So that was fairly new to me. It was like a new way of thinking when playing a video games. That was kind of loved. And other something else that I absolutely loved about my very first time experience in Dark Souls was the rewarding feeling with overcoming a boss. Specifically, mid game, there's like one of the is very well known, one of the most hardest bosses to ever exist, which is I forgot the name, but I always told them like the tall dragon knight and the fat knight with a giant hammer. So basically, this is the boss in mid game in Dark Souls, and it is known as one of the hardest bosses in the game. And so many people beat it while summoning someone else to help you. And for me, I just wanted to beat him by myself, and it took me so long. I had to level up, strengthen my weapon. I had to go back and try out other weapons. But when I finally overcome that challenge, the feeling that I got was just something else. So the reason why I chose Dark Souls 1 as one of my favorite difficult games is because the first time experience that I had, and the first time stepping into a different kind of game style, or a different kind of realm when it comes to the video games. Basically, these kind of games give a different kind of experience. It's not the same experience as you get when playing another game, because this game makes you accountable to your actions and all. So yeah, for me it's Dark Souls, and Dark Souls basically one of a lot of people's favorite video games. But there's a reason why I chose Dark Souls, because the experience that I had with it, and every time I remember it, it's just something else.
I said we'd say Dark Souls at some point in this stream, and that was a perfect ending as well. That was great.
All right,
okay, before we end the stream, Blue Fox, quick to you. What are you working on in this next month? I think I already know the answer to this, but I thought it might be great for the viewers to know.
Yes, well, since the end of the year is coming, I'm working on my last video of the year.
Oh no, his last video of the year!
Of the year, not of my career, eh? Don't despair. I'm actually probably gonna work on some scripts in the meanwhile. So next year I should probably come with more videos. That's what I always say every year.
I think it would be great to know exactly what you're doing, where you're going. It's like, are you taking like time off or something, or?
Just enjoying the holidays with family, nothing special. But myself, I do like to keep December a little bit empty, because it's the last month of the year, so time for reflection, to wrap up some last things. The last thing I'm working on, like the last video, will be a video review of a video game, a small Italian indie game.
Oh, do we get to know what video game, or is it a surprise?
Well, I just said it aloud.
Wait, what was it?
Lawgivers 2.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that part.
Which is a review that I'm doing with a friend of mine.
Okay. It's a duo video.
Yes, it's a duo video.
Nice.
And the first half is a review of this indie game, and the second part is a greater discussion of how democracies are depicted in video games.
Wow, that's deep.
Ooh, that's interesting. That's very deep.
Yeah, we always went, oh, that's deep.
Yeah, well, I always.
I think your viewers are in for a treat.
I gotta always raise the bar, right?
Yeah.
No, but jokes apart, yeah, that's gonna be the last video, probably coming the 4th of December.
Can I just say, Blue Fox, you have had the most. For me, I think you've had a really impressive year this year, because I think you started off at a certain level, and then your bar of creativity for the videos that I've watched has rated so high. I think next year is going to be a really cool year for you. Here's celebrating the end of this year, but also I can't wait to see what content you come out as soon as next year starts as well. So I don't know if this is the last time I'm probably going to have a proper chat with you, but if it is, then I can't wait to do more podcasting next year and to see where next year takes your channel. And then
thank you.
Okay. And Kamazoids.
Oh, I've been cooking all right, but sadly to say, for people who already know me, I'm still making Elden Ring videos, but I do want to say that the next video is very close to finish. I'm doing the ending touches on the final fight clip, which is very interesting. This boss took me very long to fight, mainly because I was being reckless in the fight itself. So there's a lot of unique things that happened in this video. The edits are very beautiful in this video, so it's very enjoyable. And I've also, within the next year, I do want to say that I'm going to be experimenting with new things. I'm going to be making videos on other types of video games. And I'm also thinking about making a different kind of video for, right after this one. I'll also be something like kind of a topic on Dark Souls 2. I remember there was a time like me and my brother played like Dark Souls 2 and something completely unordinary and very weird glitch happened in the game while fighting the boss, and I had like a gigantic like rage quit because of what happened. But surprisingly, I did manage to record what happened, and I want to plan on making a comedic video on that. So I'm probably going to be working on that after this Elden Ring video, and then some few more Elden Ring videos, and expect something new because I want to expand on what I'm doing with more video games. So yeah, of course, depending on my upload schedule, which is very messed up, but for next year, I want to try to be more consistent and make sure to have uploads for each month.
Okay, all right. I like it.
And yourself, Seb? What are you gonna be up to?
Yes.
What am I up to next month?
Yes, you're the main event, bro.
Am I the main event? Oh, this is gonna be fun. Oh yeah, that's right. The Game Awards for JumpInside Games happens next month. I'm so excited. We've got a whole list of 12 different entries for different types of games. It's all happening next month, just after Christmas. You can see it's a special video. It's coming out. We do it at the end of every year, and it's just choices of different games, and we give them special categories and everything. And that is coming out. And I always say ours is the best. If you've watched the Game Awards, it's nothing compared to ours. So watch ours. It comes just after Christmas. Anyway, that's it from me, and that's it from Blue Fox and Camazoid. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys on another podcast. See you later.
Bye bye.
See you next time.